all the way down, but it's recording.
That's the extra.
Okay. That's our shofar for us to start. Okay, so we ended off last week in Perek Beis Pasuk Vav. Smolo tachas l'roshi v'yamino tichapkeni. His left hand is under my head, supporting my head, and his right hand is embracing me. We said this is one of the pinnacle phrases, pitgamim, expressions of love in Shir HaShirim, where we're saying that we feel Hashem's constant love, not just constant presence, but constant love. It's a whole new level. Yes, we feel it. We know that Hashem is supporting us mentally, and we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is embracing us physically, or the heart could be physically, or the heart could be emotionally and spiritually. That Hashem is with us at all times, and Hashem is loving us at all times. I have to say that yesterday I was at this incredible lecture right here in Yigal Alon. They dedicated a library to the 22 at Kafir Alon. So yesterday was 52 years. So 52 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've never been, but they advertised. My son learns in Amit, so I got the invitation, and they advertised that Iris Chaim is speaking. Now, Iris Chaim is one of my heroes. To me, she's just incredible. Superwoman doesn't even begin to explain what she is. And so I was like, oh, I really want to go. But of course I went to work and I forgot, and it was called for 6 o'clock. And at 6:30 I left my office. I'm walking past Yigal Alon and I see Iris Chaim sitting outside Yigal Alon. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Iris Chaim. So I went over, I said, I'm shy, believe it or not. I went over to her and I said, I just want you to know that you were really an ogen for me, an anchor for me in all of the confusion of everything that was going on. You were a voice of sanity and of love and of forgiveness and of faith, and it's very touched. And we spoke for a while. And then I went home, changed, and came back. And it was actually a magnificent program. And I never heard her speak. I've heard her interviewed. I never heard her story from beginning to end, right? And if there's one pasuk that I have to if I want to put a subtitle to her entire speech, it's this pasuk. Smolo tachas l'roshi v'yamino tichapkeni. She by profession is a hospice nurse, right? So this is she is a very spiritual person to begin with, but she was completely secular. She says she had no idea. There was you and there was us. What she didn't even have. She said, I didn't even have a Sefer Tehillim in my house. I had nothing. I had no connection, nothing. And she said such incredible things about how she would meditate on certain things, and she would just literally hear HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice. Not Hashem's voices, but the voice of Hashem, which we're going to learn about in a minute, where she would hear the voice of her son. She said after her son fell, and his story, I don't know if you know his story, he was kidnapped. He suffered from a lot of illnesses, both physical and mental illnesses. And he was captured on October 7th, taken out of his house in Kibbutz Re'im, and he was taken hostage. And he escaped with 2 other hostages and was accidentally shot by our forces, right? And she, of course, was devastated. And it's the next day, and they have to get up to greet all the people who are coming to Shiva. And she's just she said, I was a mess. And I said, okay, I'm going to start doing some breathing exercises and just breathe in. Just breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And she got into a meditation. She said she heard her son say to her, Abba and Ima, I want you to know that I died a free man.
I heard her say
I gathered the courage. I was okay. I was good when I left. I left this world in a good place. And everything is okay. And hakol l'tova. I did it. You'd be so proud of me. And she said that was to her, that was it. That was it. Her son, who had suffered from illnesses his whole life, which, so to speak, caged him, died a free man, which was so comforting and so empowering. And she said something else amazing also. She said that tefillah, she had never even thought about these words. Like, what was prayer? What was tefillah? She said she thinks it comes from lashon ptil. Ptil is a wick, right? What does tefillah do? Tefillah connects us to Hashem, the Or HaElyon, right? The great, illustrious heavenly light, right? That's how we like to think of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is Or Ein Sof, Or Elyon. She said that's exactly what the candle does, right? The candle connects the wax of the candle to the flame, right? So that's what tefillah does. Tefillah connects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And she said one other thing, and then we're gonna go on, but it really has to do with this pasuk, how she literally describes how Hashem wasn't holding her hand, right? Wasn't in the background, but literally like embracing her, walking her and her family through this, and her son through this extremely, it's not even, there's not even a word, extremely difficult. Like that doesn't even begin to explain it. She said that the parents of the other Chatufim and their families, they created this organization, right? And they were like a block, okay? And they had certain things that they had an agenda to do. And she did not agree with those things. And one of them was that they passed out a pin that says, my son or my child, my sister, my brother is being held hostage in Gaza, and my heart is being held hostage as well. Something along those lines. I don't remember the exact wording. And she said, no, b'shum panim v'ofen. B'shum panim v'ofen. I'm not, you think I'm going to let Hamas, they took my son, I'll also let them take my my heart? My heart is mine. So instead of that, somebody, she said, from this area made her this beautiful necklace. This was from last night. Lahamin lirot shatov. So that's what I would. Lahamin lirot, and she still wears it. Lahamin lirot shatov. To have faith to see the good.
Beautiful.
And
never more.
Wow.
Incredible to be able to feel smolo tachas leroshi b'yimino techapkeni.
What is it translate?
Smolo tachas leroshi, his
right.
smolo, his left hand is supporting under, literally under, but it means supporting my head. B'yimino techapkeni, and his right hand is embracing me, like you would hold a baby, right? Right. Watch the head, right? Okay. My oldest was born, right? So all the Baruch Hashem, he had grandparents and he had great grandparents, and every time we'd pass the baby, right? You have to take the first one. Everyone's got to take a number, right? When it comes to the seventh one, it's like the baby's crying, right? But the first one, it was like and his bris, literally, my grandmother and the other grandmother were the great grandmothers, right? They were like, you've had they were literally like time, like, I think you've held the baby long enough, right? It's my turn. I came farther, right? I'm older. I'm trying to get in on more baby time. And as soon as
the mother,
every time it would be like somebody else's turn. All of the grandparents, all the great grandparents, and Baruch Hashem, everybody should live and be well. Well, most of them aren't gonna. Whatever, the ones who are alive should live and be well. Everybody like said in unison, watch the head. Watch the head. So this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu embracing us, right? And everybody heard many times the story of the footprints, right? The story. That's a very nice story, right? There's footprints. I didn't realize that they're Hashem's footprints, and he's right behind me. Or there's a Rashi which describes in Parshas Devarim how HaKadosh Baruch Hu ki saw of his beno, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like Kiviyachol, put us on his shoulders, right? But that's one thing. This is a whole nother level, right? This is an incredible pasuk. And it's a great pasuk just to like say to yourself, English, Hebrew, French, whatever language, right? Say to yourself, it's a great meditation. You don't need to know any Rashi on it. You don't need to know any Alshich on it. Just to say, Smalo tachas l'roshi v'yimino techapkeni. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here with me. This is love. This is Hashem embracing me. Sometimes we spoke about this last week, but just to bring it in, to connect it to what we're going to get to this week, and that is very often we're in a difficult situation, right? So, and she also spoke about this a little bit last night too, that we want to be very positive, right? We want to think things are going to go well. This is going to be healed. I'll get better. This person I love will get better. Things will change, right? And then there's reality, right? And reality tells you, really, right? Really? So how do you deal with that complexity and that sometimes that contradiction of there's reality, right? There's science. Science says this person is not going to make it. Okay, that's what science says. Science says that this person is never going to change. Okay, right? Because if you ask anybody, people who have personality disorders and narcissism and other mental illness, they're never going to change, right? And then there's, well, maybe, right? Hashem can do miracles, right? Anything could happen. Hashem could be. And then there's a different level. And that other level is, well, maybe Hashem will make the miracle that I can handle this and still feel love and joy. And that's like a whole meaning. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know, lahamin, li'rot hatov, I know that it's going to be good. I know that this is love. So Hashem, let me feel the love within this. Let me feel. And Yom HaZikaron, I sat with a family that our kids learned together in not just our soldiers, but our other kids learned together. We were affiliated with a lot of the same communities in Ramat Beit Shemesh, and I sat with them and Mrs. Knoll, and actually the Rav Harashi, Rav Lau quoted her in his Yom Zikaron address, which is, I think, a great honor to bestow upon her. And one of the things she said is, she said she lost her son in the war. An incredible boy, like really a special. Like you see, I think about him, you just smile because he was just such a teddy bear of a person. Like he was a kid who was just amazing. It said about him a couple of days before he fell in battle. His mifaked was like yelling at them about something they did, but like the real army trash talk of dressing down and in the middle of this and they were in Gaza. So Moshe goes over to the mifaked and just gives him this huge bear hug, and he's like, "I think you need a hug." And of course, like, what's the mifaked supposed to do? Like, okay, fine, let's move on now. And that was the end of that. But that's what he was like. So she said he was born. I believe she was in her 50s or around 50. Somewhere close to 50.
She
was.
And
yeah.
her husband was in his 70s.
Yes.
When he was born. Oh, wow.
Late 60s.
Late 60s.
Because that would make him like 99.
Right, 99.
And he's not.
No, but he was maybe now he's 75, and then his son was 19, which is also
he's 78.
Like he's 78 now.
Yeah, the father is 70. I think he's the same age as the state. I think that's what someone told me. So around there, okay, give or take. And she said, I didn't ask Hashem, like, why, right? I didn't ask Hashem, like, why are you doing this great miracle for me? I just took it, right? And said, thank you. And so it was a huge zchut. She said, I feel Hashem's love now, like I feel Hashem's love when he gave Moshe to me. This was all done with love. And to get to that place, we have to, again, it's like a lot of time we want a result, right? I want to pray, and I want my prayers to be answered. But maybe we're davening for the wrong thing. Maybe, of course, we want to put 10% or 20% of the prayers towards the result. But maybe 80% or 90% needs to be towards, I want to feel your love, Hashem. I want to feel this pasuk in whatever happens. Whatever's going to happen, I don't know what's going to happen to me today, right? But I want to feel 24/7. Smalo tachas l'roshi v'yimino techavkeni. Okay. So the next pasuk is either Hashem talking to all of the goyim, or Hashem talking to us. Okay. So first we'll do Rashi, which is Hashem talking to the goyim. Hishpati eschem benos Yerushalayim. I am taking an oath. Now in Hebrew, Hishpati means I am forcing you to take an oath. Which I don't know how you say that in English, except for that long sentence of I am forcing you to take an oath, right? I am imposing an oath on you, right? I am swearing you in. Maybe that's close to it, okay? But spaos or ba'ayalos, in the gazelles or the rams of the field. In other words, the game, the animals that are not owned, they're not domesticated, they don't belong to somebody, they're hefker. If you are going to disturb the love between me and Klal Yisrael, if you are going to bother us, if you are going to interfere, then you are going to be free for all, like the game of the field. And here HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, okay, Klal Yisrael finally feels my love, right? Klal Yisrael is saying, wow, Hashem is not just here with me, but Hashem is here loving me, carrying me, holding me, protecting me, loving me, enjoying me, right? Just like enjoy that baby, first one, right? Enjoy that first baby, the Bechor, where Hashem is Bechor, where Hashem is firstborn. You, Goyim, I know you, right? You're going to bother us, right? You're going to be jealous. Why do they get to feel God's love? Why are they special? They're not really so special. They sinned with the Egel. They sinned with the Meraglim. They sinned with everything. And Hashem says, Oy vavoy lachem, if you come in and try to destroy that ahava. Now there's a drush on this pasuk, a very nice drush, that says, Im ta'iru v'im te'oru es ahava. If we are awakened to Avos Hashem, if we have this flash of inspiration, don't let it slip. Ad shetechpat, make it into a chayfetz, make it into something tangible. Take on a Kabbalah which is tangible, right? And the Lubavitcher was very into this, right? So you take on a Kabbalah for your birthday, you take on anything that's like leads you to a place of inspiration. It's going to be Shavuos by Ne'ilas Achad. Take on a Kabbalah, right? What am I doing here? How am I going to concretize? Because we all know what happens. We get these great flashes of inspiration. They come and they go, right? So there's a lot of ideas on this also. You can make it into a chayfetz, make it into a piece of art, right? Take your inspiration and make it into something beautiful to hang up on your wall. Rebbetzin, I can't remember, Rebbetzin Yeager's mother, which I can't remember her name right, Freifeld. Okay, Rebbetzin Freifeld, you knew her. You're making a smile, and the first,
I know.
Sarah. Okay,
The original Rebbetzin.
the original Rebbetzin, right? Okay, so she used to make these incredible tiles, which she had in her kitchen with psukim that inspired her, and she would paint the tiles. In fact, she embroidered her dining room chairs with pictures of Yerushalayim and psukim. Wow. Right? That when she had an inspiration, she took it into a chayfetz that would, we may have all over Israel, we have andartot, right? We have these memorials. Everywhere you go, there's a memorial, right? You're on the highway, there's a memorial. You're going here, there's a park, there's a memorial. You're in a mall, there's a memorial. You're in a restaurant, there's a restaurant here, beautiful little place, by the way, in Beria, called Tilush, right? Yeah. Really cute place, right? They have a memorial there also. By the way, the menu that they have there are favorite recipes of chayalim from Tzfat and the area who fell in the war. Wow. Yeah. And the restaurant is called Tilush. It's right if you were going to Kever Rav and Abaye, or better well known maybe is the army base there with the huge towers and satellites. It's there. Really cute place. And you can write a message to the families. They have books there. You could write that you tasted this dish and remembered their son or whatever.
Where's the memorial?
On the wall where you wash.
It's the wall. It's not like a sculpture.
Right, it's not a sculpture. Okay. It's what? Yes, all of the ingredients are of Lando and Eda Charedas.
Wow.
It's great. And also has pictures.
And it's really good.
Yeah. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. And it's in Beria. Dangerously good. Yes. Okay. Anyways, back to the point, right? It's a great. I just did a commercial. I'm going to send them a bill.
Wow.
In any event, what were we talking about?
You were talking about how she embroidered.
So making some everywhere we go. There's andartot, there's memorials, there's sculptures, there's the salim. There's something that walls with names. We're all the time remember, right? Mm-hmm. So our homes, our area, our environment, we could create that too, right? There's a lot of about people's behavior and habits and forming habits. And all of the research points that environment is actually extremely, extremely powerful. It has an extreme power on our thought process, right? How many millions of dollars has been used to research how to get us to buy products, right? Where to put it on the shelf, what color it should be, right? To catch our attention. And how are we going to buy things, right? And what will spiral us into a chain of buy one plus buy another plus buy another, right? I think it's called the Detroit effect, something like that. So the way we design our environment has tremendous impact on our behavior. Okay, and they've done this. They've taken people. They saw this in with Vietnam veterans. They found that they discovered that I think over 20% of soldiers in active combat in Vietnam were addicted to heroin. Okay, so what was assumed until then was if you take a veteran out of Vietnam who's addicted to heroin, he needs to go to some kind of rehab and will be an addict for the rest of their life. But they found that it actually wasn't true. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I think they discovered that when those same veterans came back to US soil and finished their duty, that less than 3% remained addicted to heroin. So they wanted to figure out why, right? Why? And why does rehab work? Why does it work to take somebody, right, who's a full-blown addict, put them in some farm in the middle of nowhere? How does that help them? Well, it does because it changes their environment, right? In Vietnam, heroin was easy to come by. In Vietnam, everybody was doing it. In Vietnam, it was cheap. You needed to escape, right? So the people who formed the addictive habits had probably a disposition to addiction, while the people who just were the majority just were doing it because everybody else was doing it, or it was easy. So the environment that we set up for ourselves has tremendous, tremendous impact. So we can take sukkim, or we can take ideas, take a picture, right, and have it up around us, or make sure that we have things that we don't want to do in our environment, right? We don't want to do something, so we shouldn't have it, right? It doesn't, if you don't want to eat something, don't have it in the house, right? It's very hard. And what do we want to eat? We should have in the house. And they even have done research about how to get your kids to eat fruits and vegetables, which is don't put them in the back of the crisper, right? Have them on the counter, because people tend to grab what's convenient, right? We look at the amount of obesity in America today, which is spiraling out of proportion, which I don't understand, because I thought everyone is taking Ozempic. So how could everybody be fat and taking Ozempic at the same time? I haven't figured that out yet. But it's an appetite suppressant that's become like super popular in America. Okay, and here in Israel too as well.
What's it called?
Ozempic. It's a medication, a GI. Now they have it in pills.
Yeah, it's like insulin, and they discovered that it doesn't just help diabetics, but also helps people lose weight
By crushing appetite, suppressing appetite. It has, though, a lot of side effects and a lot of unknown side effects yet. It's still, we'll find out in another couple of years. But it's definitely a better alternative than bariatric surgery and all of those things. In any event, again, we're not doing a commercial for Ozempic. The point is that when did Americans begin to get so fat? Only in the late 60s, early 70s. Okay, when the snack food became popular, and the snack food companies invested millions of dollars to figure out to get people to snack. People used to have 3 meals a day with no snacking, right? There weren't these,
or an apple, maybe a fruit or something,
but not a snack that grew in a bag, right? The whole culture of graze eating, right, or snacking is something that was only really became popular in the early 70s, mid 70s, and that's when the obesity sparked, when it became no longer eating, but a culture of snacking. So the same thing is with spirituality. Yeah, the same thing works for spirituality, the same principle. If I want to daven every morning, right, and I want to make sure I say my brachos with kavanah, then what should I do? How can I design my environment that I say brachos with kavanah? So maybe I want to put brachos on the on the wall, and I could read them, right? Ashayotza posters became extremely popular. Why? Because it not just helps people to remember to say Ashayotza. You'll remember to say Ashayotza because we've programmed our brains. But to be able to stop and read it, that's for another level, right? So the way we design our environment is how we're going to get results. So the pasuk is hinting to that by saying, if you feel this awakening, right, don't let it pass. Don't let it disappear. Hold on to it. Because even though we have great memories, by the way, we can't even imagine what great memories we have, right? Sometimes you think you don't remember things. If you think about all the phone numbers, all of the commercials, right? All of the passwords, right? Yeah. That you remember, and we have a tremendous amount of knowledge stored in our brains, right? But we want to have access to it. We want to be able to lishlof, to retrieve it, and to use it. So to do that, we have to design our brains, right? And we can design our brains. We can design our thought process, right? There are people who, I'm not suggesting to do that, but it does work, right? I've never done it myself, but I've heard people report it, that they put a rubber band around their wrist, and when they start thinking negative thoughts, they give themselves a little snap, right? Wow. Which is like Pavlov's dogs, right? Mm-hmm. Training yourself to not go down that direction, right? I don't want to think these negative thoughts. I don't want to think bad. I'm going to start, people say it does work, right? So we have a lot of free choice when we choose to exercise that free choice. But it's up to us. So most people are very passive and they're just accept whatever they get. Like, my brain, I can't control my thoughts, when actually our thoughts is perhaps the only thing we actually could control. Okay, so the Alshich says, though, that this pasuk is actually Hashem talking to us. And Hashem is saying, Hishpati eschem benos Yerushalayim. Who's benos Yerushalayim? According to Rashi, it's Klal Yisrael. According to the Alshich, it's the Goyim. Benos Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim would be Klal Yisrael. Benos Yerushalayim, which is like the suburbs of Yerushalayim, because the Midrash says, Asid, in the future, Yerushalayim is going to be the big metropolis, and the rest of the world is going to be suburbs to Yerushalayim. So Benos Yerushalayim, daughters of Israel means suburbs of Israel, you suburban people, meaning you non-Yerushalmim, and Yerushalmim is Klal Yisrael. Non-Yerushalmim, people who live in the periphery, right? People who live in the periphery, according to the Alshich, you're outside of Yerushalayim, because all of Eretz Yisrael will be Yerushalayim, and this is the Goyim. I'm sorry, this is Klal Yisrael. According to Rashi, it's the Goyim. According to the Alshich, it's Klal Yisrael. According to Alshich, Benos Yerushalayim, daughters of Jerusalem, that is us. So the Alshich says, what is Hashem saying? Hashem is saying, good morning, right? As we say in Hebrew, Boker Tov Eliyahu. You finally feel my love for you. Nafal lachem ha'asimon, that I love you. Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it. And if you do ruin it, I'm going to give free reign to the Goyim, because Hashem made the Goyim promise. He swore them in. He made them take oath that they would not unnecessarily hurt us, torture us, bother us. And Hashem said, though, that oath is on condition that Klal Yisrael recognize my love for them. And when that starts to fade, the wall comes down and the Goyim have free reign. And you, Hashem says to us, you will be like that game. You're open game. And we've experienced this many times on many levels, physically, spiritually. We all know exactly what this pasuk is talking about. And then the next pasuk, Klal Yisrael says in pasuk Ches, Kol doidi hine zeba. I hear the voice of love, and it's getting closer. Or Yitzirayim, the voice of Hashem was heard through Moshe and Aaron by giving them the mitzvah to prepare the paste, to put the dam and the mashkof and the blood and the doorpost. Thank you, the doorpost. And to have the seder and how to do it, and to Rosh Chodesh and the mitzvah of Bris Milah. I hear it's coming, right? The Geula is coming. I hear the voice, and this is now. right? We're supposed to hear the voice of Hashem at every minute, right? At every second. That is our mission. Hashem, the Gemara had, the Medrash has all of these amazing stories about a baskol, right? A voice, a daughter of a voice comes out. What is a baskol, right? And if there's all these baskols going on, who hears them? Who doesn't hear them? So we could hear them, but we have to listen. We have to be very open to hearing it. The pasuk in Tehillim says, and it's quoted by the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, Toiv v'yashar Hashem al kein yorech chatoim badorech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is straight. Therefore, He will guide the sinners towards the right path. And the Rambam asks, how do we know how to do tshuva? And an even better question, how do we know where to start doing tshuva and what to do tshuva for, right? I mean, where do we start, right? I don't know, right? I have this problem every year, comes Chodesh Elul, waste most of Chodesh Elul trying to think, what should my Kabbalah be? Until I started in the beginning. Now, I highly recommend it, Erev Rosh Chodesh Elul, either you think and you decide what is to be your Kabbalah for Chodesh Elul, or if you're more inclined towards Chabad, you ask the Rebbe. If you're a Gra person, some kind of form of Goyal HaGra. If you're a Breslover, they also have their method of getting an answer, right? And you get your answer.
You can always do last year's because you probably didn't do it well enough anyway. Yeah, right.
Chadesh, something new, a new challenge. Okay, so Kol Doidi Hinei, we need to listen, to hear the voice of Hashem. So the Rambam says, how do we know what Hashem wants from me? So the Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva that a person who sincerely wants to do tshuva, a person who sincerely wants to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem will send them messages. Hashem will guide them. Hashem will not leave them. So sometimes those messages, we hear the message and it's like, you know what? I think I'll change the channel, right? Because we don't remember. I'm going like this, and it's good. Everyone knows what I'm doing. If I did that to like the teenagers, they'd be like, "Why are you going like this? Why aren't you going like that?" Right? They have no clue what I'm talking about like this, right?
Or like this, if you do this.
So we want to change the channel, and like, okay, I don't want to hear that. Okay, but very often what we don't want to hear is exactly what we need to hear. So Hashem sends us messages through everyone is a messenger from Hashem. Everything we see, everything we hear, everything we experience is Kol Doidi, is the voice of my beloved calling to us, giving us input, giving us guidance, guiding us to work in the place that we need to work. I'm sure probably almost all of you have read this great book by Rabbanit Sarah Yehudit Schneider, You Are What You Hate. Great book. Really, really, really good book. I would lend it out, but I'm nervous I'm never going to get it back. And as many of my books have wings and have flown the coop, but which is good because then I make room for the new books, right? So doing me a favor. In any event, it's a fascinating book. Fascinating how she discusses there Kabbalistically very often the things we try to avoid the most, right? What we hate the most, whether it's a midah in somebody else, or whether it's a thing in Klal Yisrael. A lot of people they're very into like justice, right? And they hate injustice. But if we really are brave enough to look into that mirror and hear the voices, because people who love justice and hate injustice very often experience a lot of injustice in their life, right? So you could say, well, the reason why they hate injustice is because they experience a lot of injustice. Or perhaps it's different. Perhaps they experience a lot of injustice in order for them to work on why they hate so much injustice and where they're being unjust, right? Which is like, of course, no one's signing up for that. But to be able to really look in the mirror and say, why do I hate this so much, right? What bothers me so much about this? Why? And to say, where do I sit within myself? Now, there's a story of Rav Aryeh Levin, that Rav Aryeh Levin, the great tzaddik, who lived in Yerushalayim before the Hakamat HaMedina and afterwards. The father-in-law of Rav Elyashiv, right? Very, very chashuv person. And he was a very big tzaddik. And he was a tremendous Ohev Yisrael. Tremendous Ohev Yisrael. So the story goes that Rav Levin one time was approached by people who said, there's people in our neighborhood who are being Mechal Shabbos. They're driving their cars on Shabbos. And he said, no, it can't be that a Yid would drive his car on Shabbos. And they said, no, I'm telling you, you have to come, you have to see. We want to protest. He goes, no, Yidden don't drive on Shabbos. It can't be. I don't accept such a thing. And they're like, I'm telling you, hello, like, get with the program. People are driving on Shabbos. We have to go out. We have to protest. So he said, show me. I don't believe it. Show me. And they would see a car. Come, Rabbi, come. And he would come to the window. No car. And he would wait there a few minutes. No cars. And then he would go back to learning. And a car would, Rabbi, come see. By the time, and he would come. No cars. And this repeated itself over and over and over again. Now, why isn't Hashem showing Rav Aryeh Levin Chil Shabbos? Because it wasn't his battle. He doesn't need to see it. Because he's shalom with that. He's dam lekav zchus. He's not shiputit. He's mekarev people to kadosh baruch hu. He's keeping Shabbos for what Shabbos is for. V'zeu. Why do we need to see Chil Shabbos? And perhaps the reason is, and people get so upset, right? Whoa. Take 3 steps back. Why am I getting so upset about Chil Shabbos? What upsets me so much about it?
Because we're also Mechal Shabbos.
What?
Probably because we're also Mechal Shabbos somewhere.
Maybe we're not Mechaved Shabbos the way that we're supposed to. I don't know if we're Baruch Hashem. I don't think we're Mechal Shabbos. But maybe I need to work on.
I don't mean intentionally, but sometimes
Mistake.
Everybody makes mistakes.
We're not being careful enough, maybe.
Okay, maybe that's when I see
I'm not saying intentionally, but maybe we're not being careful enough about things.
Yeah.
In certain areas.
When my kids were very young, we lived in Beit Shemesh, right? In Beit Shemesh, not the American, not Ramat, Beit Shemesh, Aleph, Beit Shemesh. And the first time I took my kids to America, so my parents live West Arches Park. There's a few Jews there, but it's not. And there's cars going by, and they're like, Shabbos, and I'm like, shut up. Guys, you can't do that here, right? You can't, not gonna work here. But but what does a person need to scream that for?
Inside themselves.
Something's wrong with them, right? When we need to lash out at somebody for whatever it is, and sometimes we feel the need to lash out at somebody for midos, they have rotten midos. I gotta mechanich them. And look, the last 2.5 years have been very hard with this because I know for myself, I've gotten so angry at some people, right? How could you do this? You're ruining our country. You're ruining everything. Wait a second. Why am I getting so angry? What is the anger teaching me? Rabbi Pliskin has a great book on this, Anger, the Inner Teacher, right? It's a great book. Really what is, if I'm angry about something, what is it teaching me about myself? And sometimes it's right to get angry. It's not always wrong to get angry. It says in Perek Daled of Tehillim, Rigzu. There are certain things, and the Chofetz Chaim has a beautiful piece on this, on what we're supposed to get angry about. Right? There are things we're supposed to get angry about. We're supposed to get angry at ourselves sometimes, the Chofetz Chaim writes. Why did I sin? Get angry at the Yetzer Hara. Get angry at jealousy. Personify, take them out, externalize these negative feelings, these negative emotions. Personify them, right? And you have help. The Chofetz Chaim could have written, there's this great, the great movie. I'm not a movie promoter, but this is a great movie. It's called Inside Out. Okay? Oh, yeah. And it has these characters of feelings. Yeah, inside the brain. Like there's anger, there's joy, there's this. The only problem is that, and this is why everything goes wrong in the movie, right? Which if they had this, they have no seichel. Everything is 100% emotion. There's no logic there. There's no seichel. So the Baal Tanya would definitely not like this because, right, the whole Indian of the Tanya keeps going over again and again. Seichel ala leiv, seichel ala leiv, and this is leiv with no seichel, even having 1% input. But we externalize these negative things. We externalize the Yetzer Hara, right? Externalize all temptation, all jealousy, all pursuit of kavod and ego, and get angry at that, right? Why are you bothering me again, jealousy? Fear, you're coming back again. I didn't ask you here, right? I did not ask you to come back, right? You're not wanted here. And by externalizing and personifying, oh, get angry at that. But when I get angry at a person, right? Why am I so angry at a person? And it's hard because there are some people who you can't understand. How could you do such a thing, right? How could you do such a thing? How could you be so cruel? And it's very easy to go off and not be down the kavschus. Now, my principal, Rav Belsky Alav Shalom, always said, be down the kavschus, but don't be an idiot, right? If somebody is stabbing another person and we say, what are you doing? Stop. They say, no, I'm doing acupuncture. What are you doing? This is just a little, nice little, okay, we're not idiots, right? But there's something called being down the kavschus. And by the way, I think I mentioned this. Rabbi Akiva was supposed to die with his Talmidim. How did Rabbi Akiva avoid dying with his Talmidim? The Gemara tells us a story, Be'ilum Shem. It's an anonymous story, but we know from the Meforshim that it was Rabbi Akiva. He worked for 3 years for a master. 3 years, the contract was the master supports him during these 3 years. At the end of 3 years, he gets his salary. 3 years comes, it's time to go back. It's Erev Yom Kippur. He's going to go back to, by the way, Yom Kippur is Rabbi Akiva's birthday. And Yortzeit, he's going back to his family, right? He wasn't married yet. He's going back to his family, and he says, "Okay, it's been 3 years. Time to pay up." And the master says, "I have no money." He goes, "Well, give me some livestock." "I have no livestock." And there's a lot of cows and sheep all grazing happily in the field. He said, "Give me some household items." "I have no household items." "Give me this, that, fruit, vegetables, nothing." He said, "Okay." And he went home. Erev Sukkot, the master comes to Rabbi Akiva's house, laden with oxen of kultu, of all of these great things. And he gives it to Rabbi Akiva as his payment. And the master says to Rabbi Akiva, the boss says to Rabbi Akiva, "What were you thinking when I told you I didn't have any livestock, when you saw all that livestock happily grazing?" I said, "I thought maybe you had promised all of it to the Beit Medrash, right?" And so what did you think? And Rabbi Akiva had been on him on every single Indian, and he blessed him. The boss blessed Rabbi Akiva. May God always judge you favorably. And that's how Rabbi Akiva was saved from dying with his Talmidim. Because he was dan l'kav zchut, Hashem was dan l'kav zchut him, even when the Gzeira was already nigzar that he was going to die with his Talmidim. So the question is, again, asking ourselves, when we get angry, right? Why am I so angry, right? What is bothering me here? Kol doide hine zeba. How is this a messenger? This is a messenger. This is the voice of Hashem. It's coming closer. It's coming to teach me something. It's coming to guide. So if we get the message first time, we don't need a second time, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth, or a sixth, right? The quicker we get the message, the quicker we can move on to better things, right? And that's what a lot of people struggle with half of their lives. They don't get along with their boss. They quit, they go to a new job, and guess what? They don't get along with their boss. Yeah. They can't stand their neighbors. They're horrible neighbors who make horrible noise and don't respect them and break everything and this. And they move, and guess what?
Exactly the same.
Or worse, right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is teaching. Now that doesn't mean that you should never move, right? I'm not saying you should never move, but I'm not saying you shouldn't quit your job. I'm not saying that, right? And I'm definitely not saying a person should never get divorced, right? Otherwise I'd have no parnasa. But a person has to realize that that's not the solution to their problem. The problem is within them. Is hearing the message that Kadosh Baruch Hu is trying to educate us. Kadosh Baruch Hu is teaching us. So are we showing up to class or are we not? Right?
So meaning that there's something inside of ourselves that is doing the same thing? Or is it meant that Hashem put us in that position because we're supposed to be developing the skills to be able to cope with it? You could look at it in either way.
It depends on the person's situation. Sometimes it's to teach us to be brave enough to make big decisions. And sometimes it's to deal with difficult people, right?
So it's not that you have something inside yourself that do the same thing. You
No,
have like these
no.
nosy neighbors. It doesn't mean like that you've been like abusive to other people.
No, absolutely not. Someone who's
Okay.
being abused doesn't mean they're being abusive to other people. And by the way, the people who are being abused don't even realize they're being abused. Just by the way, they're like, they're very good at being down the kavskut. But what are they not good at? Saying, I'm a tzelem Elokim, right? I was created in the image of God.
Piece of paper out of their pocket.
From the Kutzker, yes, exactly. They lost the paper that says, right, Bishvili Nivra Olam. They just have the Anochi Ofer Ve'efer paper. Take care. Okay, so 100%. We're always, but you see, that's a great example, because that's how when we cut and paste the messages, we're not getting our message, we're getting somebody else's message, right? So sometimes we're supposed to be quiet, and sometimes we're supposed to speak up. Usually it's what's hardest for us to do, and we tend to just stay in the place where it's easy for us. So we have a whole generation, right, of people who were trained to be mevater, right? Vatronis is the biggest mitzvah you can do. Vatronis. But are you always supposed to be mevater? Are you allowed to always be mevater? Are you doing anybody in your seva favor? You know, I was talking to a mother recently, and her son's behavior is like out of control. Okay, adult, but his behavior is offensive. It's not right. It's a very, very, very poor behavior, to put it mildly. And what she said to me was, "Well, I spoiled him. I never disciplined him. I babied him, etc., etc." Now, I'm not saying maybe she's right, maybe she's wrong, maybe there's too much guilt there. We're Jewish mothers, that's what happened. But, right, there possibly is truth to what she's saying. If a person is mevater, are they really doing the people in their surrounding a favor?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
Like they say, the reason why I said you spoil them rotten, that they becomes rotten person.
The question is, who are you being mevater to? If you're mevater to the Shechina, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's good. But when you're being mevater to another person, not a good idea. Because most of us, 99% of the world, we're not really mevater. We're just taking that vitur, that, how do you say vitur in English? Taking that submission, right? And we're filing it in our file cabinet, and we're going to collect on it at another point, right? So are we really being mevater? So we're lying, we're puffing up ourselves, lying to ourselves that we're this awesome person who's mevater, right? We're creating a false image for ourselves. We're stepping on another person. That's not called being mevater to somebody, but I'm going to use that vitur in a future litigation, okay, it could be the litigation of the mind, or
I know what you're saying, but usually we are taught that in interpersonal relationship we should be ready
No.
to remove that in a certain like
it's a huge
like
mistake.
your husband doesn't put the chair back in when he gets up from the table, for example. Not that I'm giving a personal example. Like it's like not such a big deal. You can remember that, like, okay, that doesn't matter.
So
Like,
retrain
yourself to feel that way. But if you're saying like, oh,
No, it's like-
I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't
And I'll tell you what I think, but I have a tachlif, an exchange for that, right? When Mr. leaves his socks on the floor after you've been married for 40 years and have told him throughout 40 years that you are not to leave your socks on the floor, and after 40 years, you know what? I'm going to be mevater. I'm not going to say anything to him anymore, right? I'm going to leave. So if you say Hashem, l'ma'ancha, right? For you and Leman Hashalom, the name of Hashem is Shalom. Hashem is Shalom, right? Shemo Shalom. I'm not going to bring up this fight again, okay? That's Vatranut.
Only
Okay.
Israel, also.
Only if
You
it's
can't
real.
Say that, and you're still annoyed.
right.
So then you should then go,
I'm gonna do this for you, but you're really
no, then
still
go back a step and say, Hashem, help me.
right to not be.
Leman Shimcha Shalom Shimcha, that peace is your name. Help me not to care about this,
Yeah.
or
Right.
not to make an issue about this,
That it really doesn't bother you anymore.
After
Like,
40 years.
because it really, really bothers me, right? It really bothers me.
I would have murdered him by 40
No,
years.
I would also like, no, let's say.
Don't think you would have been the first.
No, but let's, there's like this, like annoying example or whatever. You could also think about it,
I also do small things that are very.
Well, that's what I was
loving.
gonna say.
And I,
That's-
and I want him to like,
that's
Vivaz
not
or
right.
I want him to
Oh,
look the
yeah.
other way.
But-
So I'm
I-
human, he's human, let's.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Usually
say,
overlook it.
when Trish was talking about that, a lot of times, especially in marriage, the very things that annoy us about our partner, our husband, or whatever, if you really look on your side of yourself, you see, I also do.
Same thing.
Like the boss, I'm so annoyed the way my husband speaks to me that way, and then I'm like, I think I also use that tone of voice sometimes when I talk to him.
Or I use a tone of voice that he can't stand.
Right, or I use a tone of voice that he
Which
also
is my
doesn't, but
regular
it's also
indoor
my
voice.
right. Or, I also walk around the house and like.
But what I'm saying is triangulated.
And certain things.
Usually in psychology, they say stay away from triangle relationships. But I'm saying in a marriage, yes, triangulate. Make it a triangle with Hashem. Because when you bring Hashem into the picture and you're accepting his will, okay, that is when we can have the koyach to really forgive, really be dam l'kav zchut, and really work on ourselves and see where am I in this picture. We're not going to lie. We're not going to be, everything is great when it's not, right? That's also not right. Think about what it means if you say everything is fine, which is what women do all the time, right? How are you? I'm great, right? Is everything okay? Is there something I need to be concerned? No, everything is fine, right? And we're expecting, our spouse to read Morse code, okay, which is our secret code. That's evil. That's an evil thing to do. It's an evil thing to do. It's called lying. And it's not just lying, it's also manipulative as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that